Hey, welcome to Barley and Hops. I'm George. I'm making the rum. We started off earlier today, and we're so glad you're here. I'm going to share this with you because this is probably the simplest thing I can make besides the sugar wash. I'm making this straight out of molasses. Just make sure you use unsulfured molasses. And what I've done here is we're going to make this rum, and it's going to taste just like rum because, you know, the basis for rum, is molasses. And I'm just mixing it up right now. This is the fifth jar, which is like 15 pounds of molasses. My guesstimation, probably way more than I really need. I'm just shooting from the hip on this one because I know normally I'd put in 2 of these, which would be like 6 pounds, and then I'd throw 6 pounds of raw sugar. And raw sugar is kind of brown. Either raw sugar or you can use some brown sugar and some corn sugar with it, but that's just to boost the ability for it to ferment and bring out that high alcohol by volume. But in this particular case, I'm just using straight molasses, and we're gonna make an exquisite rum. Hey, but before I get to that, I wanted to share with you a couple of things while I'm working on that. And this is only going to take a few minutes. This is not rocket science, believe me. The fast ferment. You know, I was telling on one of the other videos, I also mentioned that, you know, your best test to make sure that your fast ferment is ready for use is the nose. And like I said on the other video too, is if this doesn't work on you, find someone who's got one that works, because all you got to do is smell it. And you'll smell it, and if it, look, I'm from Virginia. I grew up in the country. As a matter of fact, it was so far back out in the country, our stop sign said, whoa. So I kind of call things the way I see them. If you smell your fast ferment and it smells like ass, or like in the other video I said, sometimes it smells like 2 of them, then there's something wrong. So you need to clean it out again and wash it. Your hand is the best thing to use, because if you run your hand through here and you start rubbing that, first of all, you're not going to scratch it. And second of all, it's a lot more sensitive than you think. If you feel something, you'll know it's there. If there's something stuck to the side, you use your fingernail to kind of scratch it off. As a matter of fact, this is probably the best thing to use, like for utensils. If you're doing silverware to sink, use your fingers, because you can feel when they're clean. So that's the best thing to use. But here's what I found out about these fast ferments. These are wonderful items, but if you reach in and you've cleaned it and washed it, and you get that smell of, you know what? Chances are, I found the culprit. It's take this bottom valve off. Now I make it a habit of removing this probably every time. There's been 1 or 2 times I've forgotten, but remove it, because you'll see on here, now if you look close, you'll see it starts to get discolored. And you see, oh, there it is. You see that discolorment? Now, that's just a little bit of bacteria growing. So, and you'll need to, it takes a little while, so you got to be cautious with it, but you can pull that tape back out, re-clean those, that'll clean up, and then put more tape on it. And at the same time, you've got that ball valve that's inside here. So if you run hot water in here, and at the same time you open and close this ball valve, you can also clean that. Now, there are directions on the internet about how to take this apart, this whole ball valve apart. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to take it apart, take it apart. It makes you happy. I'm okay with the hot water, just open and close it because you'll notice that this will have an odor that the fast ferment won't have, and that's your culprit. Now, one last thing that you want to make sure that you cleaned up real well is the collection ball. And the collection ball also has threads around it. So once you pull that collection ball out, and I've got everything I need right here somewhere. Every time I do this, I set everything up so that I can show you, and then I forget where I put it. Here it is. I've got the thread tape. I've got the collar. And now all I need is the, the little do thing goes on the end of it. But I'll find it here eventually. It could only go so far. So, without further ado, if you're going to when you do put the thread tape on here, it's easy to do. Just make sure you don't put on too much, and it goes in one direction. It goes in the same direction as the threads, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So you'd put the thread tape on in the same direction. So take a piece of thread tape. Okay. Lay that on the threads. Run it around one time. and then you'll cross over it, and as soon as you do, just give it a good pull and it'll snap off, and that way your thread tape will stay on there. Now you don't need any more than that. Any more than that and it's going to start to get bound up, and then when you do have to take that apart, you're going to have a lot of thread tape to pull off of there. So take that. Now remember, before you put the, and I'll find it eventually because I know I can't use it until I do, but before you put your screw on the end of this, make sure you put the collar on there first. Otherwise you'll be taking it apart. Okay. I just don't know where I put it. It could only go so far. Well, if not, I'll find it. Well, but I don't need it right now, so that's good enough. Look, I've got my molasses. This was the jar that I used, or the one that I had with a bunch of molasses in there. And what I'm trying to do is rinse out the remainder of the molasses that's left in the bottom of this container. And man, I'm telling you what, molasses is really thick. It's just like a maple syrup almost, but it's got a very, very unique flavor. All right, lay that over there. Now it's time to add our water. Now, with this particular fast ferment, I don't have a thermometer on the side because this was an old model. Again, this is another one I've had for about 2 years. So it's just a testament of the durability of these things. There's that one. And I'm just using just regular tap water because once this thing starts to ferment, just remember that as the higher the alcohol content becomes inside of your fast ferment, the more of a natural preservative it is, as long as we don't allow anything from the outside to get in. And that's where the airlock comes in handy. So I've got 2 gallons in there. Okay, this will be my 3rd gallon of water. And that should bring me up to about 5 gallons total almost. Let me see, I put 5 quarts. Now it'll bring me up to just shy of 5 gallons, so I'll probably have to put another gallon in there. But, God, this is so easy. And, you know, when I started off earlier today, I said I had 3 of these available as being empty. Now I'm down to, in a moment here, I'll be down to 1. So I'll probably be making a beer this weekend. All right, 1 last bottle of water. And what do you think the next step is going to be? You know, just like in all of the fermentation that we do, and that's whether we do beer, whether we do wine, or whether we do a mash, we're always going to, of course, stir it up some, and then we're going to check the gravity. And checking the gravity is going to give us an idea. And again, be careful about not scratching the inside of that. I'm using a plastic paddle. There. And see, I haven't even put a ball on the bottom yet. There. Here's my refractometer. I'm getting really, really accustomed to the refractometer as opposed to the hydrometer, but the hydrometer works just as well. I mean, they both tell you the exact same thing. So it's no big deal. And we're going to read that. Good Lord, 1.087. 1.087, I haven't added any sugar yet at all. This is just molasses and water. What I think I'll do in order to make sure that I've got a really good content, a good ABV, because I'm going to try to get as close to 19% as I can. Right now, 1.076, I just happen to know, is 14%. So I'm at 1.08687. I could probably do with maybe a pound or so. So I'm going to get some sugar and add in there, and I'll be with you in just a moment. Oh, yeah. Oh, welcome back. I did find, while you were gone, I did find my connectors, so I got that all screwed together. I put the ball on the bottom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to check the gravity. I added a little bit over a pound of corn sugar, and what I want to do is try to get 2, 3, just enough sugars in there to make it worth our while. Oh yeah, okay, 1.098. 1.098. That's going to give us a really, really high ABV, alcohol by volume. We'll get somewhere close to, I'm trying to think, that's going to bring us up probably about 16%, which is very, very good. especially for what we're doing. So I've got that nice mixed up. Let's open up the ball valve. Let it gurgle. Because it does need a little bit of air, so part of aeration. Look, I'm just filling up space and time now. All right, the last thing that we're going to add to this is I'm using this Rum Turbo Yeast. A lot of times I'll use distiller's yeast in just about any, if I'm using corn or I'm using rye or a barley or just a corn or just a sugar wash. I really like to default back to the Daddy, which is the distiller's active dry yeast. It's got a real high alcohol tolerant level. But when it comes to rum is a little bit more specific. So I always default to the rum yeast. It's really worth it. It's what, $3 a pack, but it's really worth having because it's cultured specifically for rums. The only other time that I will branch off from a specific yeast or to a specific yeast would be for a vodka. If I'm trying to mimic a specific vodka, I'll branch off into a vodka yeast. But otherwise, the Daddy's the way to go. And again, I just give this a good pour. It's time to add the lid. And of course, all of this has been sprayed with Star San. Shortly, I will zipper up my blanket, add my airlock, and let this thing ferment. So we'll be with you in just a few minutes. As soon as I got to get my ice bottle ready because this is going to remain at room temperature, but I'm going to bring the temperature down a little bit. So we'll be with you shortly. Woo-hoo-hoo. Hey, we're at the final step. The final step is to secure this by zippering up my thermal bag, and then I'm going to put the airlock. You know, I keep losing stuff. And I need the little top of, there you are. It goes on top of my bubbler, or airlock, you call it what y'all want. There we go. Now, 7 to 10 days from now, there, that's a tight fit. Good. Good. 7 to 10 days from now, when this is all finished fermenting, we'll go back in, and what I will do is every couple of days I'll switch those bottles out because I'm trying to maintain that temperature. And the temperature I'm trying to maintain is somewhere just a little bit below 70. Every couple of days I'll go in there and I'll change out those bottles, and I'll keep a track of the temperature, and I'll kind of let you know what's going on. What we've done today, we've just made some rum. So this rum will run off in the still just like all the other products that we run. We may or we may not run it. Who knows? I do want to caution you, though, about temperature again, one last time. And that is, the higher the temperature, the more stench or the more off odors that your yeast are going to produce. It's not necessarily going to affect your product, but it's going to really make it a very unpleasant environment for you to be in. So try to keep your temperatures as low as you possibly can without, if you go too low, if you get down to like 60 degrees, especially with a rum yeast, about 65 or so, you'll notice that your fermentation will slow down drastically until you warm it back up. If you get it way, way too high, of course, it'll go really rapid, but then you have all those off odors. So without further ado, we'll see you on the next video, and as always, happy brewing.